Welcome to my first ever proper lightsaber review. I am the FloWarrior. I'm a professional lightsaber performer and instructor with over 15 years of experience. In the coming months, I'll be going through my entire lightsaber collection, which you can see displayed behind me, but I thought I would start it off with a video with a saber that is near and dear to my heart, my first ever lightsaber with sound, the Genesis Custom Sabers Ascend. Now first, a little bit of background on this company. This saber is produced by Rob from Genesis Custom Sabers. He is widely considered one of the best in the business. He's a small one-man operation based out of Canada, and he produces some of the most beautiful and high-quality sabers on the market today. He also works closely with the Custom Saber Shop and with Irv from Plector Labs to develop and test new saber technologies. I believe he was one of the first companies to test and offer the Pixel Blade setup with the Crystal Focus soundboard. Rob is a true artist within the lightsaber industry. He tends to focus on smaller volume, higher quality lightsabers, and his Bane and Bad Axe, in my opinion, are two of the nicest and most beautiful curved lightsaber hilts available on the market today, and they are highly sought after. So I highly recommend you go and check out his work on his website and his photo gallery. He does a lot of one-off, one-of-a-kind custom work for people as well, does beautiful acid etching and powder coating and other types of customization. He has a really cool Halo-themed saber, some other sort of like Celtic ones as well, so definitely go check out his work. But for today, we'll be focusing on one of his entry-level, higher volume produced sabers, the Ascend. A base level Ascend will cost you about $500 US with a blade, with additional costs if you want custom anodization or acid etching or a pixel blade setup. The version I have is a dark side anodized version with an angled emitter. I got it all the way back in 2014, so this uses older electronics. I believe it uses the Crystal Shard, which is one of the precursors to the current Crystal Focus that he offers on all of his sabers. Now, as far as the aesthetics of the saber, it could be considered a little bit minimalist in design compared to other sabers, but I actually quite like it. It's very comfortable in your hand. There's no sharp edges or anything protruding that's going to hurt you while you're throwing the saber around. It has this nice recessed section right here that is pretty close to the balance point that makes for a nice place to grip it with your thumb and index finger. These ridges right here that are slightly recessed provide really nice grip on the saber so that it doesn't slide out of your hand. It is also very, very well designed and constructed so that all the internals are flush with the inside of the saber. There's nothing that jiggles around, which means that when you drop it, you're not likely to break any of the internal components. This has been my go-to saber for almost 10 years. I've dropped it literally thousands of times, and it has really stood the test of time. I think in all of that time, I had the speaker that got damaged once that I got replaced, and then once I accidentally tossed it into a pool of water, which obviously the internals didn't really like. Thankfully, Rob lives pretty close to me, so I was able to take it to him to get it repaired and get my favorite saber back in action. You can probably see the wear and tear on this saber, all the dents and stuff like that are not only in the anodizing or powder coating on the outside, but specifically on the edge of this saber. It's actually been buffed and machined a little bit by machinists to clean it up a little bit, but this thing has been used and dropped a lot. The saber design is quite nice. It has all of the internals, as I mentioned, that are very flush with the inside of the saber. This particular version came with what's called a rice port, which is kind of like a 3.5mm audio jack almost that you can plug into your computer that allows you to change the color and sound and sensitivity settings, which was a cool feature that I had never experienced before on a lightsaber. That being said, it has to be plugged into the computer in order to be able to access those settings, which means that to change the sensitivity, you have to plug it in, change the setting, unplug it, close it up, and then test it again. I know that some newer sabers on the market are starting to incorporate some kind of like Bluetooth or Wi-Fi control that allows you to control it from your phone, which allows you to do it on the fly, which I think eventually would be a much better setup. But again, this saber is almost 10 years old, and this rice port was pretty innovative and new to me at the time. I would say that I kind of just tuned things to the way that I wanted them to be. I turned the volume up almost to max so that I could use it outside and in comic conventions and still have it be pretty bright and beautiful. But overall, the aesthetic and the balance and weight of this saber is very, very nice. Now, this saber isn't as lightweight as some of the other sabers that I currently like to flow with, like my Makazes from SaberMach or my Scout saber from Fire Sabers, both of which have a 7/8 inch blade and a thinner hilt overall, which tend to be lighter and faster for throws and for dual wielding for connecting to a staff. That being said, this saber is still relatively lightweight, or at least on par with a lot of other full-size sabers that I use, and is extremely well balanced and durable. Now, I've been debating whether or not to include number scores in these reviews. I think I'm going to start out by just doing it and then decide whether or not to keep it later on. I'd say looking first at the aesthetic or style of the saber, a base level Ascend is probably about a 7 out of 10. I'd say my version is maybe closer to an 8 out of 10 with the custom anodization and the angled emitter, but I'd say that could go all the way up to about a 9 or a 9.5 out of 10 if you were to look at some of his more advanced customization options like custom acid etching. As far as the performance or play of the saber, I'd say it's a solid 8.5 out of 10. It's well balanced, it's extremely durable, it has no sharp edges or anything like that, really high quality machining, it's very comfortable in your hand, it has this nice indentation which gives you a nice grip to hold on to, so it's a very, very nice saber to play with. Finally, the electronics in this lightsaber are all top tier. It comes equipped with the Crystal Focus soundboard from Plector Labs, which is one of the gold standards in the industry. Has a very loud and high quality speaker with well-designed air cavity and acoustics. The recessed switches are some of my favorites on any saber that I own, and it does come available with a pixel blade setup. So altogether, that averages out to a score of 8.2 out of 10, which I would say is very good. Again, this saber is very near and dear to my heart. At the time, I remember thinking it was quite expensive to invest that much money into a lightsaber, which seemed like a toy. But since then, it has more than paid for itself in terms of the performances and workshops that I've done. And I see it really as just an investment in my career as a performance artist and instructor. I've always really liked the idea of having a master craftsman build a tool to be used by a master artist. I think back to feudal Japan where they had a master to refine the ore into tamahagane, which is the correct type of steel or iron to use for making the sword. They had a master to actually forge the sword, another master to involve with polishing and finishing the sword, and then they would hand it off to the samurai who would actually use the sword. So I truly believe that this saber is made by one of the world's master lightsaber smiths, and I'm honored to be able to use it as a professional lightsaber performer and instructor. Whether or not you choose to invest in one of these sabers really comes down to you and whether you like the design and aesthetic of the saber, so that's completely up to you. But at the end of the day, I don't really think that you can go wrong in supporting this amazing small business. He has exceptional quality, craftsmanship, and attention to detail. He is a true artist with a real passion for what he does and is one of the nicest guys in the industry. And if you can afford a Bane or a Bad Axe, just do it, you won't regret it, and I will be a little bit jealous of you. So now to cap things off, as I will do customarily at the end of all my lightsaber reviews, I'm going to show you what this thing looks like in action. Ouch! Shut. Oof.